What up? What up? What up? What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It is Friday. We made it. We made it, y'all. It is Friday. I am not in love, but we will work on that later. Dating in the time of pandemics, I don't know what that is. It's not real. Be careful out there, kids. So, welcome to the show. It's live from the living room. I have a couple amazing guests today. I'm noticing a slight echo in my microphone, so hopefully you're not getting that too. But if so, you can just drink your way through this broadcast and you won't even notice it. It'll be fantastic. So, without further ado, I want to bring in my two guests today. At first, I am going to bring in Miss Jen Crawford because yay, there she is.
Hey.
What's up, Jen?
Hey, not much. I've got my Carol Baskin wear on. I thought it was appropriate. Totally, trending right now.
Killing it.
Yeah, just killing it.
I love it. How are you? Tell us who you are and what do you do? What does your business do?
Yeah, so I am the co-founder of a company called Sparent. Sparent is a made-up word. We are a virtual agency. Our talent pool consists entirely of stay-at-home moms who happen to have a lot of skills taken from their previous corporate jobs, businesses, higher education, that sort of thing. And we give them good pay and a flexible work environment so they can transition back into the workforce when they're ready. And I also produce a couple of conferences, DC Podfest, and for the first time upcoming will be Podcast Inc., which is a podcasting conference for corporate America, focusing on internal podcasting.
You're awesome. Well, I'm trying to get this Facebook watch party started, so don't mind me. I'm just being slightly obnoxious. It's not really working, so I'll just deal with that later. But I love I love all of your missions. I love everything that you're doing with the Podcast Inc. with internal communications or private podcasting, if you will. And I love Sparrows. Like I love Sparrow. I think it is just the coolest thing ever. And such a fantastic idea and way to get people working and sharing their skill set. How have you been adapting with everything that's going on? Is this increased business for Sparent, or is this where are you at with all that?
We are holding steady. We're very fortunate in that we are an online business by nature. So we've managed to maintain our entire clientele, which, knock on wood, I'm so lucky to be able to say that. We were in the process of onboarding a handful of new companies when the pandemic hit. And so they all, 100% of them, put on their brakes for the moment. So it's not like we haven't been impacted at all, but we are certainly not in one of those business sectors that have been, just devastated because of the pandemic. So, I'm counting myself very fortunate. We're
For
doing okay.
sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, we'll see what happens when when the smoke starts to clear, right? It'll
Yeah.
probably be very different situation all the way around. For sure.
Yeah, for
All
sure.
right. So my next guest is Kristi Otto. What's up, Kristi? How you doing? Yay.
I should have said
Amazing.
that. Ah, missed opportunity.
That is so funny. How how are you feeling today? Woo! Barely, but yeah, yeah, it could always be worse for sure. So why don't you tell everybody who you are, what you do, what your business is? But yeah, mhm. For sure. Mhm.
Right? You're getting a really great look at everybody's personal life, which has been kind of interesting. So,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you said about if you don't if you don't adapt every 3 years in a major way, like you're going to have a hard time surviving.
right,
And like, man, that is so true in general, right? Like before, and it's like you said, even before this happened, when you look at like trade restrictions with like Huawei and all the sanctions and all
right,
this stuff, like, I was talking with Adam Levin of Chuck Levin's about what's going on like before the pandemic hit with the sanctions on different equipment from China
right.
and how even if it's in the same warehouse, it can't come anymore, which is now going to like change what they can sell and what they can't. And then does that apply to things that are already in their warehouse? Like a hot mess express, right? Like, which
Yep.
would really change the way that we do business and the way that like commerce works in that way. And then now we've got this. So, even without the pandemic, you have to constantly be able to pivot and adapt because shit
Yeah,
just keeps changing.
it's economic, it's political. Technology is changing very fast. You've really got to be constantly ear to the ground, trying to see around the corner where you want to go,
Yeah,
where you want to be. And the upside of this is, you know, everybody's going to be able to reinvent their company to what they want it to be, and you're going to see where all the cracks in the infrastructure are, right? So it's a way to
mhm,
build it the way it should be for the next generation. It's a great time for looking at your company in terms of responsibility for the environment. What are you
totally,
contributing back? We have a
100%.
trend for that, but a lot of companies were just sort of tacking it on. But I think it's a great way to
Mhm.
start over with a foundation for that. So,
I love all
Yeah,
that.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, for sure. I think that we're just headed into a different time and a different space, and I think it's one that's well needed in a lot of ways, not
right.
not including the like obvious tragedy and terrible stuff that's happening, but I think just, creating a more sustainable world that's more enjoyable. I
Yeah.
think people I was chatting with a good friend this morning and he was like, he's like, it sucks. He's like, but I'm super stoked because I have two little girls and I'm getting to spend a lot of time with them.
Right.
And I mean, his name is John Bowen. He's an incredible graphic designer and he's just one of the most positive people I've ever met. And like, once again, just driving a great point home that like, yeah, um, I'm watching a lot of posts and you can tell that for some people, this is the most time they've ever spent with their children,
I think,
which is a
yeah.
That's right.
whole other conversation, quite
I
frankly.
I
But
think the work from home trend is going to be just the biggest benefit that comes out of this, because if you think
yeah,
about it, like you said, it's quality time while you're doing your work. People are going to spend more time with their families, less time commuting. It's kinder to the planet. There's
totally.
Yep.
tons of studies that show that people are more productive at home.
Right.
Companies just haven't been as open to it, but now we've sort of forced the issue inadvertently with this pandemic. And, this is a multi-month, work at home situation. So it's going to be enough
Yeah,
time to prove the concept. And then hopefully corporations will say, well, it's working and we don't need the overhead that we've been
Right.
carrying in these office buildings. But that gets me thinking, what is going to happen with the office buildings? Like, I'm imagining all these empty office buildings. Like, are we going to like, can we like house the homeless? Like, can we turn them into art studios? Like, what is going to happen?
this is what we do. We storm the castle, we
Yeah.
take that shit over, we rebuild a new society
Yeah,
out of poorly decorated office
Well, I
space
think
in
the
downtown.
office space will change. I think we're social creatures. We're going to have to, and
sure.
some work really needs to be done face to face,
True.
right? And
Right.
we're going to be tired of being in our four walls. It's going to be, let's get together. But
so maybe the co-working model becomes like just sort of more of a universal.
Well, it may be more
model.
Flexible, right? 3 days at home, 2 in the office or whatever. But and maybe a big trend on setting up those home offices, right?
Yeah.
The right equipment, the right backdrop.
Right.
Instead of people calling in from their bedrooms or their bathrooms.
Yeah, we're going to have to get our act together.
Exactly.
Can't have that unmade bed in the background.
Well, it's anywhere to get away from the kids, right?
Yeah.
That's the only quiet place you have.
I mean, I've been kind of excited. Like, I built a home studio for myself because I figured, like, I have all this equipment. I might as well bring it home. I can run sessions. I can do other things, whatever. And now I'm kind of into it, right? I'm like, man, why didn't I have a, like, proper setup? Because, you know, I was working out of the studio a lot. But then, you know, as we got busier, I don't have to be at the studio. My engineer's running the sessions. I'm just in the way and then, like, quietly working in the room. Like, so a lot of times I've been working from home anyway, so that my studio can be operating as a studio and not a co-working space. And so I'm like, why didn't I do this a while ago? Why didn't I set this up to be like fully ready to go from home? Because, you know, parking is expensive in DC, especially in DuPont. Like there's no cheap way to get to work other than riding your bike, and you're just risking your life. So that's not cheap.
And that's if you can find parking in DuPont.
Oh my God, it's insane.
Yeah. It is. I think there are a lot of positive changes in the work, you know, in professional environment. I know a lot of fellow business owners that are pivoting a little bit and making changes due to the environment that the pandemic has put us in. But they're also like, you can look at them and think, oh, these are actually making your business more stable. They're introducing new revenue streams. Like I can see that like almost all of them, they're going to continue whatever they've done during the pandemic beyond the pandemic, like online courses and classes and things like that actually allow them to scale their business in a different way, have online offerings that they didn't have before. My brother-in-law has a very successful travel agency whose like revenue just sort of instantly stopped with the pandemic. So he's going to use this opportunity to renegotiate contracts with the wholesalers because they get paid so late, like way after the money is like beyond the refund period. They don't get paid until like after the travel like actually happens. And there's really no reason they couldn't get paid sooner. So they're using this opportunity to renegotiate those contracts, and hopefully they're going to have a friendlier contract, you know, now and then beyond, so that they, you know, their cash flow is, they don't have this cash flow situation when another, you know, pandemic hits, you know, hopefully not never, but you know, the chances are we're going to see this again. And the travel industry is particularly vulnerable. You know, they were, you know, hit hard with H1N1. And so this is something that they've seen. So shoring up those businesses, so smart. And, you know, I think there are just so many opportunities that present themselves, you know, which is kind of bad. I feel kind of bad saying that because we're going through this like really horrible, scary time and people are dying. But, you know, we do have to find like what can come out of this in a positive light.
But I think it makes you question everything. You know, why was I doing,
100%.
you know, where are my priorities? But when you start questioning, you're like, why do I commute? I don't need to commute.
I don't need to commute.
Why am I paying for this space? I don't need the space. So I think that's all really good to reevaluate everything we're doing. I mean, I've seen where they're doing that with the medical device and all the regulations. They've relaxed so we could have the more, you know, flow of all these goods. And the question was, well, if it's helping save people now, why was it in place before? Why was it so hard before? Right?
Yeah.
So it's good to rethink everything.
And it's good to see things happen quickly. Yeah. Like, you know, there's always like such a, like, you know, the government is always such a beast and slow to enact things. And even big corporations are really slow and bulky and, you know, slow to make change. But being forced to make these changes on the fly proves that it can be done. And I think, you know, in the future, post-pandemic, we're not going to take like excuses for things not changing more quickly as easily.
Exactly.
Like, you know, we know that it can happen now.
Right. Like, may all of your vaccines and medicines be created as quickly as whatever the next iPhone is. You know, like that should be
Yeah.
the model.
Well, it'll be bringing all that manufacturing back to the United States so we have control over it, right?
Well, even on a smaller
Right.
scale, like our ABC, not to bring up alcohol so soon, but our ABC laws in Virginia in particular have always been very strict, like very, very strict. Well, it was like a month ago that they loosened them up so that restaurants could deliver like cocktails and
that's right.
alcohol. You could pick up your drink, your mixed drink, right outside the restaurant and take it in your car home. Like you can do that now. Like that was unheard of. And they changed that law like lickety split overnight in order, because they had to, because otherwise, you know, we are going to lose all of our restaurants. So it's just amazing, like what can happen when it really needs to happen. And it makes you, like you said, Kristi, it makes you question everything.
Well, and didn't they say alcohol sales are up 72%?
Yeah, they are in my house. Quarantinis are the drink of the day.
But I didn't realize you could drive. You can take a cocktail to go.
Yeah. I mean, you still can't drink and drive. That's still a no-no, and I'm okay with that.
Wink, wink.
Well, but you know, can you imagine? Like I mean, that is such a drastic change from what we're used to. So it's just kind of interesting.
Well, I liked how some of the wineries had adapted before they closed, obviously. Mm-hmm. Instead of people and letting people in or taking deliveries to the car, there was one in particular that had a dog, and they loaded the dog with the saddle and walking the wine to the car. I
have seen multiple videos come across my Facebook feed of dogs delivering things to neighbors. And it's like, they've never done it before. They seem to just take to the work. And I'm looking at my dog and I was like, there is no way you would ever deliver anything to anybody. You're so lazy and you just, you know, you don't do anything anybody wants you to do. But I'm like, how did people get so lucky and get these dogs? Like one was like a Chihuahua, and he was like, he would take the grocery order and like deliver it. And then the neighbor would pick it up and then send it back over. It was crazy.
I love it.
Lily's not doing none of that. Lily's just like, I'm sleeping.
Is on strike.
No, Lily's a princess.
She is a princess. She's just over here chilling. She's like, when's the next walk? What are we doing?
My dog is all about the pandemic. He's like, humans, 100% home. Yes, this is what I'm like been telling you I need.
I should have fostered a dog before this. I'm begging the neighbors, let me play with your dog.
Yeah, there is a need for fosters, and apparently fostering is up because people are home, and so they're more open to it. And you know, some of these shelters are actually getting 100% cleared out, and then the adoption rate is really high for the foster, you know, fails, like they call them foster fails. So a lot of the foster homes end up adopting the dogs that they're fostering. So more good coming out of the
exactly.
Yeah, I think it'll be a really big shift, but I think there'll be a lot of positive things that come out of it for sure. I think you know, it kind of brings me to something that's been on my mind a lot the last few days. You know, it's kind of this whole idea of shaming people for various things, right? Like there's people who are like shaming people for not doing enough. There's people who are shaming people for marketing their services. There just seems to be a whole lot of shaming going on right
now. Too much shaming.
Too much.
And I'm shaming the shamers.
Shame on you, shamers.
Call them out. Absolutely.
Yeah. Man, and so, you know, I kind of wanted to touch on that a little bit because I just think it's so unfair, right? And so, and it's not so much about like, I want to complain about those guys, but just to kind of remind people that like, you're not expected to do anything in this pandemic other than survive. If you come out of this on the other side with your family intact and like, you know, a few extra pounds, like you won.
You got half a liver when you come out of this. You're doing great.
Well, I mean, you know, the shamers,
half a liver.
Whatever they're shaming about is what they're doing or their expectations, right? If you don't come out ripped and lost 10 pounds, then, you know, you're a loser or whatever.
I mean, it's hard to wrap your mind around how much our world has changed. And I mean, our world, not our city, not our state, our world has been turned topsy-turvy, like seemingly basically overnight. I mean, you know, in a very short period of time, the fact that, I mean, I know it took me a week just to kind of like mentally absorb what is going on. And then there's all these low level stressors that you don't even like realize. Like I was realizing, like, I thought we'd stocked up on dog food, like for the pandemic, but like we're like in our last like bag of dog food. So I'm like, but I can't get like it for like another, so like I have to think everything I need. I have to think like 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks in advance. So like the toilet paper, like everything, and that's not like a huge deal, but it is like just something you're not used to worrying about. And then I was eating a sticky piece of candy the other day and I was like, what am I doing? What if it pulls out a filling and I have to go to the dentist? And so there's always like, what if I get sick with something else? What if my dog gets sick? Like, what if somebody in my family gets sick?
Yeah.
So I can't go to their funeral. Like there's all these things like
easily
or
too many.
I think we're going through all those stages of fear and grief, and you know, you have to, and you have to go through them and then kind of settle in and go, okay, what are we in for? What are we? What's next?
And then the other part of me is like Katniss Aberdeen from the Hunger Games. I'm like, bring it on! I'm ready to survive.
I'm ready.
I got this.
My bow and arrow. I'm ready.
Oh my God! Yeah, the only thing that's gonna be like coming out of this ripped might be my pants from all of the
right.
Because I stocked up on rice and pancake mix, and so I'm not gonna die, but I might get fatter, and I'm cool with that. You know what I mean?
It's okay.
Well,
I'm cool with that.
That's good, because what if something happened to the food supply? Like I am weeks from starving to death, maybe months. Like I've got a lot of reserves here that I could, my body could live on. I feel sorry for the skinny people.
I don't think anything's wrong with our food supply. I think we'll be fine. Toilet paper apparently is another issue, but
still a panic. I'm just saying, what if?
Yeah.
What if?
Yeah.
You got to learn how to cook. I think people are learning how to cook,
That's
right?
true.
You're learning how to do things that our grandparents did, and it's like, nailed it.
Well,
Yeah.
I was, we were walking Meatball the other night and I looked around my neighborhood and I almost didn't recognize it because there were kids playing like soccer in the cul-de-sac. There was somebody on their front step playing an acoustic guitar. There were like dogs I'd never seen before kind of out and about.
Right.
We were all like keeping our distance, like there's plenty of space. But I was like, I've never seen those dogs before. I've never seen those kids before. I've never seen that person playing a guitar before. Like it was just kind of like I was like, that's not a bad thing. This is not a bad thing.
That's
because
everybody works.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Nobody ever has any time to just go outside and enjoy their front porch because they only have like 3 hours at home and they got to like do the kids' homework with them or like, answer some other emails, right? Like there's never any free time. And so now people are like, wait, I'm going to go outside. I want to.
Right. I've lived in this neighborhood 2 years and I've just now met the neighbors. Except for one I already knew.
But you met them from a distance.
Well, yeah, social distancing, of course.
I live in fear that my neighbor will want a conversation with me when I'm like going out to my car. I'm not making eye contact with anybody.
You can talk.
Like,
I don't see you. You don't see me.
6 feet. I'm good.
Yeah, 6 feet, 30 feet. I don't know. I've heard different things. Scary.
I don't trust any of it. Every time I go outside and I like freak out a little bit, like I'm turning into that person because the last couple times I went for a bike ride, when I came home, I felt terrible. And I'm sure it was just all the pollen, but like that onslaught of pollen feels a lot like a fever because like your skin starts to hurt and like everything starts to ache and your head starts to hurt. And then you're like, oh shit. You know what I mean? And I don't know if it's worth it, frankly. So I've just been running up and down my stairs. Because that's kind of like riding a bike, I guess. I don't know. Same muscle group, right? But less interaction with nature.
I've been running outside, but avoiding, like, if I see like people coming, I take a left, and I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm like, running from zombies.
No, we all cross the street, so we don't have to, pass each other.
Yeah.
That's what everybody's been doing. So this is the new dating, right? In the pandemic. Now you're going to have a certificate of immunity and health before you, go out.
Like, let me see your test results,
Mm-hmm.
mother. Mickey Flicky. I need some proof. Yeah, I don't know. I think it'll be really interesting. There's some new like viral dating shows coming out, and like, or maybe viral is not a good word anymore, but. It'll be interesting to see how people change. I think one thing that's really important to remember too, I was looking at some of the numbers and I was thinking about, okay, well, worst case scenario, if 250,000 people die, which is a horrendous number, it's still like 0.0006% of the United States population, right?
Right.
And it's still way too many. Don't get me wrong. But I think that sometimes it feels like when we're allowed outside again, like half of the people we used to love are going to be gone, right? Like it feels like
Yeah.
half of the business, like, and I'm not sure that that's totally accurate, right? And I think it's important to remember that like we're still very much full of life, you know. The sun will come up, you know, again. I mean, it's out right now, right? And maybe some of these values that we've gotten away from because we're all so busy working, maybe we will remember them again, right? Like maybe we'll become a better nation out of it. And I think we'll dial in more on what matters and what doesn't.
Yes.
And yeah, I think, you know, I love the idea of being able to spend more time with people I care about and less time working. You know, I've been saying for years that rush hour is bullshit. Like, why does everybody go to work at the same time? It doesn't even make sense. Like, who said that was a good idea?
It's a bad
like,
idea.
Because we've always done it that way, right? We're not keeping up with the changes. And one of the other things that's coming out of this that I said is a great thing is that every public place we have is going to be really clean. The places that have never been cleaned before are going to be clean.
So, shiny doorknobs.
Right.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm thinking back to all the things I would touch without thinking, like keypads at registers and things like that. And I'm like, now I'm like just touching a keypad at the gas station or whatever is like, oh my God, I'm taking my life into my own hands. Where are my wipes? Yeah. I washed my hands with bleach the other day.
Oh.
You what?
I washed my hands with a bleach solution because it was what I had at the moment. And now I have hands that look like 90-year-old lady hands.
Yeah, good times. Good times. You're like, nothing's getting through this skin, I'll tell you that much. Yeah.
At least I didn't drink the bleach.
Yeah.
That's next. I've made a light bleach solution, like watering down, like putting like this much bleach, you know, in a spray bottle and the rest water. And like wherever my roommate goes, I just follow behind.
Spray them.
Yeah.
I've lost track of what I've sprayed, what I haven't sprayed. All I know is my house smells like bleach.
Right?
It's our new perfume for 2020.
The cleanest house in all the West. Yeah. I mean, so I've been baking a little bit, although I think on the top 10 list of things you shouldn't do if you're home alone is bake a tray of brownies, because there's only one way that story can end.
I made some brownies as
Sometimes you have to do it though. I mean, you have to.
Yes, but when you're alone, it's a really slippery slope because, and then I'm like, I'm eating brownies all day and I'm like, you're such a heathen. No brownies tomorrow. No brownies tomorrow. Then I wake up and I'm like, I think I'll have a little brownie with my coffee. And I'm like,
no shame.
I have no self-control, none. So like, no more brownie pans of things laying around. And then I have the Great British Baking Show cookbook.
Oh, I love that.
I love that.
Yes, the Great Cakes book, which is awesome. But like, again, I don't need a whole cake laying around, y'all. I need the Great British like cooking show. I need to learn how to make like a roast or something. I don't know. Like, I think I have to pivot. I think I need to like cook something and then bake something. I can't just bake a bunch of things or I'm literally going to come out of this like 100.
But you can freeze those cakes and save them for later.
I like where your head is at, Kristi.
Yeah,
that's smart. That's real
then
smart.
Then you don't have to eat it all at once. You can kind of
It'll be like my wedding. I can be like, oh, remember my pandemic wedding when I made this cake and I lived alone?
Quarantine, day 15 cake.
Pandemic cake.
It's just me and the cake.
Is anybody journaling or documenting their life during, because this is a historical event, right? Like when we're like 100 years old, like, are we going to have like I don't have children, but like my nieces and nephews and their children, are they going to come up to me and be like, tell us about the pandemic and Jennifer? Right. And I'll be like, I didn't journal. I'm 100 years old. I have very little memory. Like, should we be journaling? Should we be keeping track of this epic epidemic?
Probably. Journaling helps you, right? And
that's what they say.
I have friends whose kids are asking them, what did you do when you had to go into quarantine when you were a kid? Right? And they're having to explain this is the first time since the Spanish flu, but they didn't shut everything down even then. But so
yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I guess in some way this show is a little bit of a daily journaling or
Good
chronicle,
points.
right? Of
Good
what's
point.
going on, checking in with different people. I don't know. I've thought about doing some more. And I thought about especially after yesterday and reading some of those shaming posts and stuff, I thought
Yeah,
maybe
that's
I should
fun.
record like a nice little video in the morning, like when I'm feeling my best and just like edit it and put it out just to like I don't know. I've been through some shit. You know what I mean? I've been through surgeries. I've had no money. I've been homebound. Like I've been through not this before, but I've been, and I just think there's so much bad information out there, right? And so I'm wondering like should I contribute in that way or should I produce more live shows with different people in different industries? I mean, I don't know, right? Like I'm just trying to show up and be a little bit accountable. Um, I do wake up in the morning and I Google the COVID-19 global death. There's this like world meter
Oh, yeah.
site, and I just screenshot it, and that's the only time that I look at that all day. Which my friend Katie Nelson was like, "What the hell's wrong with you? Why would you do that?" But for me, I'm like counting because I want to see when we get to the peak, right? And I'm just kind of tracking it. So now, if you look at my screenshots, you can see from like when I first started tracking, like how the numbers are going up.
Right, right.
Um, because I'm hopeful to just get on the other side of the peak, right? Like that's
Right.
really what I'm looking for. Not so much like the doom and gloom of it, but just trying to see like when we might get closer to the other side. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Like
I think putting positivity out there is never a bad thing.
No.
There's just a
yeah.
lot of misinformation, negativity, fear. So putting that positivity out there is always cool.
I agree. I love the
Always
positive
useful.
stories, and I don't mind the good like resources that people put out because the good information from reliable resources. But I've seen
Right.
so much like people like putting stuff out there with absolutely no source. Like you have no idea where this graph came from or where this, they
Yeah.
don't source it whatsoever. So, I can't pay attention to that because I don't know if who like anybody could have made that in Canva. Like I don't know.
Exactly.
Right.
I don't know. That
Right.
could be the Russians. But I think we have a responsibility that no matter what we put out there, that it's from a reliable source. And if you're putting a lot of negativity, at least balance it out with some positivity. I think that is the least we can do.
I agree.
Yeah, I've been unfriending the fuck out of some people. I'll tell you
I
what. I'm
unfriended a
like,
couple people this week too.
bye bye. I did it quietly. I didn't let them know. I wasn't like, I'm out, right?
Yeah.
Like I was just like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm just done, right? Like I only want people that are gonna post funny stuff
Yeah.
or uplifting stuff, right? I have this one friend. I've shared a few of his memes, like the really good ones that I've shared are all from him. His name is Matt Baylor. He's a DJ in DC, amazing, amazing human. Um, and like the Britney Spears, the one that's like my loneliness is saving me, like that one, like he, or the Sex in the City one that's like, and then when that text came in at 1:46 in the morning that said, "What are you doing?" I asked myself, "What am I doing?" Like Sex in the City style. Oh man, I mean, all we can do is laugh, right? Because we're in our houses, and if not, we'll just go crazy.
Oh, there
Yeah.
are some funny
There's
people out there.
There are some funny people. I love the one. It's like, we might have to, this might get so bad. I might have to go hunt for my own food. I don't even know where Doritos live. I laugh at that one every time I see it.
Yeah, you have to sort of moderate social media because I know for Twitter, I can only be on Twitter about 20 minutes a day because there's just so much frontal lobe garbage out there
Yes.
but the upside is like last night I have a friend in San Francisco who's a brilliant jazz blues pianist and she did a live concert and I loved it because I never would have gotten to hear her. Most of the time she's, I'm never in there to see her live. So stuff like that has been just really awesome. And I hope that she keeps doing that.
Thank goodness for the artists. I mean,
Yeah.
talking about, artists are, historically,
Mhm.
undervalued in society, right? We don't pay them enough. We think of them as charity cases. Well, guess who's gotten us through this pandemic more than anybody else? It's been
Right.
the artists and the grocery store clerks and the
Yep.
and the frontline healthcare workers. Those are the heroes in this story.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I'm hoping that's another positive thing that will come out of this, that we will start respecting the arts in the form of actually paying artists a living wage, paying grocery store clerks and people a living wage. Hey, you didn't want to give them $15 an hour, but you sure are glad they're there to bag your groceries, so your family doesn't go hungry. And they're also like putting their own lives in jeopardy every single day for that less than $15 an hour wage. Something
100%.
99.999% of us would not be willing to do. So,
And the teachers,
and the teachers.
who's the one that said, my kids have been home a week and teachers should make $1 billion.
Right. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
I've been homeschooling them a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. And I've been trying to remind my friends that are like parents, and I'm like, this is totally unsolicited advice from someone who doesn't have children, but like, I didn't learn anything in high school. So like,
I remember very little from high school. You know what? All you've got to do, parents,
seriously.
is keep them alive. Like, just
Yeah.
keep everybody alive.
Yeah.
That's like, that's the baseline here.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's
And
true.
I mean, I know there were kids in my high school that like learned stuff when I wasn't, but I feel like at some point I really tapped out, like basic math skills, like basic reading comprehension. And then at that point it was like what I was interested in, like led that journey. Right.
Mhm.
And so much of what we did was a waste of time. Like so much of it was like waiting in lines, changing classes, going to auditorium pep rally. Like if you really break down how much time like a kid spends actually learning in school, it's really, really minimal because of just how it's set up. And I think it's going to shed a lot of light on like charter schools and how those things
alternative
run. And I think,
learning models.
yeah,
I think, yeah. I have a
Yes.
niece who's like just so bright and ambitious and smart, and before the pandemic, but shortly before the pandemic, her parents took her out of high school, and I forget the name of it, but it's basically a homeschooling model, but there's in-person support, and they basically just support whatever path seems to make the sense for that individual. It's very individualized and self-directed education. So whether that's entrepreneurship, college, whatever it is, and I think that is and she's thriving with that. She's so great at being self-directed. I was like, you know what? Traditional public schooling is like, it's an old model that's never been revisited.
Right. It was done in the Industrial Revolution. Right. It was to teach people all these skills they needed to go to work in the factory and the businesses. But look, we've changed. The whole dynamic of how we work has changed. So
I think the 9 to 5 work week is from there too. Like,
it is.
Why have we not reinvented that, Kristi? You're all about reinvention. Like, what is wrong with us?
All of it needs to be reinvented. And this is why you have something like this chaos that's going on.
We are burning it down during this
pandemic. We are burning it down. And like a phoenix, we'll redo it. And that's right. That's the thing. And that's why they're bringing back the trade schools, because that was, you don't want to do that. Those jobs were looked down upon, even though they pay very well. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think it's great. The kids need different choices.
They need options.
They need options.
It's not just, why is it always college? Like, why are you always putting your parents in the poorhouse? Like, just to learn, like, go to school for 4 years and then like not even use your degree? Because
I'm all about learning and being more of a Renaissance, like knowing different things, different disciplines. But when did it become?
Why is it $100,000 a semester in some places? Who can pay for that? And
what happened there?
You're not leaving college and making that salary. You're not going to be able to win. That scenario it makes no sense anymore.
No, it doesn't.
You kind of have to wonder too, like which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Like, school was invented because the Industrial Revolution, but then I mean, does school still exist the same way it does now because we're all at work? And so we need you know what I mean? How much is feeding what? Like, are we going to work to leave our kids alone while they go to school? Or are they going to school to leave us alone while we go to work?
Right.
Or right, where do these things intersect, right? And then childcare is so expensive. school, even for like younger kids, can be really like.
Yeah.
I went to Catholic school in Falls Church. I went to St. James Elementary School,
Mhm.
and then I was supposed to go to O'Connell. And luckily, I in 7th grade when we were going to be what is it when you get confirmation in 8th grade, and they were like, Molly, why don't you stand up and tell everybody why you believe in God? And I was like, well, I got some problems with these theories. I'm not.
I got
I'm having
questions.
a
Questioning everything.
Got
yeah.
some questions here, Father.
There's some dots I'd like you to connect here. They're just not adding up. And they were like, yep. They called my parents and they were like, well, she'd be better off in hell, but public school might do the trick. And so
Take your
I
devil
ended
child.
up, they were like, get your non-believing daughter out of here. And so I ended up at George Mason High School. But yeah, I mean, it's really, I don't remember my point in any of that.
Well, you're talking about feeding this dynamic we've been feeding each other, and it's
how
insane.
expensive it is.
And how
Yeah.
expensive
And
it
how
is.
expensive it is.
So I went to, St. James, which like, I had the same teacher for all of my subjects. Like there was 30 kids in my classroom, like the whole year, right? Like it was tiny. It was like Little House on the Prairie, right in Falls Church. And it was $30,000 or $8,000 a year.
Right.
In the 70s. So there's 4 of us. So my parents were paying $32,000 a year in the late 70s and 80s for all 4 of their children to go to Catholic school. And at the end of the day, it was a subpar education. Like, yes, I had a great like moral composition for sure. Like going to a Catholic school was good. Like for the beginning, like just to understand some of those things, right? But then it got to the point where it was like, no, our art department, we were like painting on newspaper and shit. Like our science department was using like 40-year-old, I almost said stethoscopes, but that's not it. But, see how much I learned? I don't even know.
I don't know what you're using.
But like,
It's pandemic brain.
Yeah. And then I like got pulled out of Catholic school and I went to George Mason High School, which is like one of the top 10 high schools in the country where they had like interbaccalaureate programs and it was free. Yeah. Right. So my parents were like, fuck yeah, you non-believing ass. Like, go on to public school. Right. And I got a better education out of it. You know what I mean? And so you have like so many of things have to really be questioned because, like, God bless, no pun intended. But my parents were spending $32,000 a year for their kids to go to school in the 80s. That's insane.
Yeah. That is
and so my mom had to work nights as a nurse and like, yeah, then they used sports as daycare, right? So my mom would work nights, work a night shift at the hospital, come home, wake us up, drive us to the pool for swim team at 7 a.m., come back home, sleep until noon, and then come back and pick us up, right? Like as an adult, I can look back and go, oh, that was pretty clever. My parents definitely used sports as much as they could because they couldn't afford daycare at that point because they're spending $32,000 a year just for us to go to school. Like it's like, my mom suffered and sacrificed so much for us to go get this like subpar education where, I mean, it's disrespect to St. James, but like there's no way one person can teach me all 7 subjects. Like I'm sorry, but that's not.
Well, this thing, not only was it ridiculously expensive, but this is another benefit of coming out of this with more of a work from home or flexible work environment. Families will be able to make decisions that are better for their children. And hopefully we'll have more options to treat children like individuals. Like, I don't think every kid is, fits the path of like public school, go to college. Like, that's just not the path. Like, how can that possibly be the right path for every person? Like, that is just does not make sense.
It's not.
If we allowed children to be, have a more customized education based on their passions or their skill sets and what they gravitate towards, like they're going to be more successful adults, and we're going to have more, we won't have like maybe a lack of manufacturing jobs, or not a lack of jobs, but a lack of people to take those jobs like we do now. I don't know. It just seems like it makes sense, like when you talk about it like this, but we can't implement it.
But the other side of that is there are jobs that are, because things change so fast, there are jobs that my kids will have that they can't plan an education for right now, right? Totally. And cybersecurity has changed so much so fast that we're behind. And by the time you say, oh, well, we need you to educate students in X, by the time they get out, the whole industry is on Z. I mean,
it's that's so true, because technology is changing so much.
Environmental environmentally, I mean, all of that AI, the driverless cars. So it's, I think some of the standard education, the basics are still there, the math and science and reading, you definitely need, but
well, even the high level, like skilled trade schools, like, medical school, like
right.
they have like robots that can like stitch together the skin on a grape. Like they're actually better at
Who
surgery
figured that
than
out?
humans. Like, so it's like, those jobs are going to be replaced by robots, like by artificial intelligence. Like,
And you know what? I'm here for that.
I'm here
Because,
for
like,
that too.
quite frankly, like, let the robot do it. Like, I got a Roomba. I love that little thing, man. It's great.
They don't get tired. They make
No.
more like, but you're less scars.
The hand doesn't shake.
The hand doesn't shake. I don't have to worry if they drank too much the night before, like, or if they hate girls with curly hair. Like, I don't know. Like,
Right.
we could take
They
all
won't
of those.
sexually harass each other. There'll be no Me Too movement in the robot workforce,
Exactly.
They're not going to leave a sponge in you before they sew you up.
Oh, cut off the wrong leg. Oh,
fingers crossed. Yeah, right. Well, and the idea is like, if robots can replace us, that means the idea is that it leaves more room for us to be humans. And I think that, I think there's a lot of us who would agree with this statement. Like, things were not working, and I have never every year I work harder and I work more hours, yet my position doesn't seem to really change. I'm not like working 10 times harder than I was 10 years ago, but now I have 10 times the amount of money in my savings account.
It's like a hamster wheel.
Right.
Yeah, and it just keeps getting faster and faster. I'm like the fat guy at the gym trying to turn the treadmill off, and I can't. Right?
I think you're exactly right. And a quick thing that you can look at just to demonstrate that what you're saying is not not just about you, it's universal, is that look at how the real estate prices have gone up, and then look at how salaries have gone up with them. They haven't.
Right.
Salaries have gone up like 3%, it's 3%, and real estate is going up 10, 20, whatever per year, depending on where, if you're in like our area versus like somewhere in the middle of nowhere. But I mean, that to me, when I saw that happening years ago, I thought, this is really scary. Like,
something's wrong.
Something's wrong. Like, something's really, really seriously wrong.
I'll give you another perspective on that.
Yeah.
I come from a farming, ranching family, and we still have my brother and sister and I have it together. My brother runs it. But when my grandfather was growing crops, wheat and corn, the crop prices were $3 and $4 a bushel, right? Okay. When you harvest it. Okay. Today, it's exactly the same.
What?
But the inputs to grow that crop are like 200,000% more. The tractors are $500,000.
Yeah.
You've got the fertilizer, all of the things that go into growing that crop are exponentially higher. But on the open market, that price per bushel has stayed the same.
And how does that even happen? Like, how do we let that happen? I mean, the poor farmer.
Exactly. How do you make a living? You've got to do all this international trade. I don't know. It's pretty crazy. We have a Chinese company bought Smithfield hams. The pigs go from here to the United States, and they are processed in China, and they are brought back and put on your grocery shelves.
How is that even? I don't even know how that is cheaper, because I'm like, the price of air, like,
this is the insanity.
It makes no sense.
The whole system that all needs to be reinvented.
That pig is more well traveled than I am, first of all, so not happy about that.
But it's gone places you don't want to go.
Right.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. They've got more stamps on their pig passport than I do.
But I think this whole thing is a great time to really rethink everything we're doing, because you can see where it's broken.
It's glaring now. It's glaring what's
right.
Not working.
It really is. It really is. And it's just time. It's just time. And I've said it before on the show, like, you know, the fact that some companies were closing their doors like 3 days in, like, bro, you were
on
skating on a
yeah,
fine
yeah.
sheet of
You
ice
were
to
barely
begin with.
opening that door every day.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. Well,
And
there's
so
some restaurants too that needed to close, I think.
I
Mhm,
agree.
mhm.
And I feel
Yeah.
bad for all my friends in hospitality. I do. Like, it sucks. I get
Yeah.
it, but we don't need 3,000 bars and restaurants in DC. Like, I don't care what you say.
Right.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry I had to go down this way. You
You know
have
what?
great skill sets that could be funneled in other directions, but
It's not
we
personal.
don't.
It's not personal.
Not
It's
Right.
personal.
it is not personal at all. You know, it'll be interesting to see like how events change, how every. But I feel like we were headed here anyway, right? Like, not
Mhm.
to be, Debbie Downer, but like we had mass shootings and shit. Like, people, like, we almost have completely forgotten about the Vegas incident where
Oh,
that guy was
God.
like,
Right. What
right, like,
happened to that?
we never talk about that at all. Which I'm not one of those people that thinks that like things are fake, because like I know that's not real. Like, I have friends whose child was killed in the Sandy Hook
No.
thing, so
Oh,
I'm
geez.
certainly
Dreadful.
not implying that this was fake. But it is kind of weird that no one's ever mentioned Vegas again. We have memorials for the Pulse nightclub. We have
Yeah.
Yeah.
acknowledgments of other things, but that went away. But like for all my friends in the event industry, that was a big deal. Like, I have friends that produced Lollapalooza and Austin City Limits, and that same guy had hotel reservations in a hotel overlooking Grant Park for Lollapalooza, but never checked in.
What?
And that was
Wow.
like a month before the Vegas thing, or like a couple weeks. So, for us, it hit really close to home, because we're like, is this a new thing now? Like, do
What
you
is
have
the
to
Right.
do an
thing?
aerial surveillance of like who could shoot at or your guests from a, like, what? So a lot of this stuff, right? I think that's why like AR and VR, and we're getting closer and closer to like people staying in their houses. We've sort of been gravitating towards this.
It's
Some
safer.
of it, I
It feels
think, is because
safer. It's safer.
people can't, and people can't afford to move around. Like,
Yeah.
moving around is actually a real luxury, like from an accessibility standpoint and from a financial standpoint, right?
Yeah.
It is expensive. We were talking about this
Right.
the other day with Trish Simatakos and Kyle Bondo. Kyle
Yeah,
Bondo,
I
I
caught that one. It was really good.
and yeah, just talking about, does everything have to be in Orlando? Like, I loved Podfest Expo, like it was great, but it kind of sucked to have to spend $1,500 to be able to be there. It was a
Right.
Right.
$1,000 for my hotel, airfare, food, travel, right?
Right.
Like, man, that event would have been so much more accessible if it was online. A lot more people could have gathered all of that knowledge, right? But it
Yeah.
changes. I don't know. It just everything is different, right? I think there's
Mhm.
like, I think we need like a little column A, a little column B moving forward to find that happy medium, so that people are getting what they need and they can still spend time with their families.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think a hybrid model is completely
I
realistic.
think that will
Yeah.
saving money, but I think you'll see a lot more local travel. And I think the local podcasts like you did last year, you don't have to
Yeah.
travel as far, but you still get together with people,
Yeah.
right? It's
Uh-huh.
not as expensive. You miss out on all these other people, but if you can bring them in remotely,
Yeah.
Yeah. And
it's a
Trish had a
winner.
really good idea, or maybe it was Kyle. I can't remember. I'm gonna steal it from either one of them. I'm just kidding. But they were saying like, why not do events like if you want to do Podcast Inc., but have it like simulcasted on
Right.
like 3 locations, so like people in Greece could all be in one place in Greece,
Yeah.
and people in
Yeah.
right, everybody in Orlando could all hang out, and you could just like stream it live, so you could still have that gathering, but without having to spend $1,500.
Yeah. That was
Just to be
definitely
able to,
Trish, because she talked to
Yeah.
me about that with
Yeah.
I've been to events like that. It's brilliant. And
Yeah.
why not?
they actually do surgeries and educating on how to do surgeries and knee replacements that way. They'll do simulcasts internationally, and people
Yeah.
can watch and learn, doctors in training. So
So
it's
smart.
So
Yeah.
cool.
So
So
smart.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we'll just reinvent things. I know. So when I had a number of spinal surgeries, and I had one in 2006 and one in 2009. And during that time, I started playing this game called Mobster Boss, and it was a like online mafia family game about being a gangster.
Cool.
And but it was all like text based. There was like no graphics, and like every 15 days or every 10 days a new round started, and you could be anonymous, but people paid to play this game, and there was an actual jackpot, and then you would buy more turns, and then 10% of that would go to the jackpot. So sometimes this game would get to be like $26,000 jackpot, right? So there'd be people from all over the world like screaming at each other on Skype, like, you fucking, like just insanity, right? And I learned about like espionage, and I was just like a troublemaker. I would like change my name every round, and I would like steal people's banks, and I would like stalk people. I mean, it was out of control. Like, I was totally a shit talker. I'm sure there's people in like Cyprus someplace who still like curse my name, honestly. But I made friendships playing that game that still exists today. Like
Wow.
the most supportive people on my social media are actually friends that I made playing that game a decade ago.
Really? See, look, that's awesome. That's
right?
a great testimonial.
And I haven't played the game in like 8 years, you know what I mean? But like, they're still my friends, you know what I mean? We're still like connected on Facebook. We like, when I went to Detroit, I hung out with my friend Nathan Cohen, and like, you know what I mean? I have a lot of friends that are just Ryan Wells, like Arthur Smythe. I don't know where he is right now. But yeah, man, like, I think there's just some beauty in finding connection, like wherever you are.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to just be face to face, right? You can still have a connection with somebody and bond with somebody and not have to actually be right there.
Yeah. You can find your tribe anywhere, as they say.
Even playing a Mafia game. It's so funny because like in this game, this is how I know that like they don't like actually listen to your phone calls, or I would have been arrested by the FBI like 10 years ago, because my phone calls were ridiculous. And one time I was at the grocery store with my roommate, and somebody from the game called me, and like in the game, in order to steal somebody's bank, you have to like, there's a whole thing where like drop their guns, and then you like do a drive-by and you max the bank. But if you were clever, you would grab like a money transfer somebody, and you would hit their bank while they were maxing and just like rob them blind, and then you'd have to like bury the money in like drugs and all. And so like one time I was at the grocery store, and like my phone rang, and it was somebody from the game, and I'm like, yeah, just sell all the guns, drop them, bury it in drugs, and then just do a drive-by on their headquarters, like hit them 3 times. And my roommate was like, Molly, and I like turned around, and everyone in the grocery store was just like looking at me like I was some sort of
you're like a cartel lord queen.
I was like, tell that consigliere I don't want to. It was awesome. Good times. But yeah, I probably am on some sort of FBI watch list because of my time playing that game.
Wow.
I'm like, do a drive-by.
I love it.
What are you gonna do? Well, you know that you could always dig deep into an online game during the pandemic and make you some friends that'll last you a decade or more.
Pandemic friends.
Pandemic friends.
Yeah.
That's right. We used to have pen pals. Now we have pandemic pals. That's not
They're
so
healthy
great.
relationships.
Pandemic pals. Yeah. It's not as good. This
doesn't roll the same way.
Well, ladies, I want to we will wrap up here in just a moment, but I wanted to kind of end with, do you have any like a helpful tip for people on how to have a great morning, or something they can do at home other than freaking out on social media? Is there anything you've picked up in the last week you'd like to share with us?
I've had to turn the TV off, right?
That's
just
a good
some
one.
Quiet time and music, and just sort of get centered again, because it's one thing to check in and see what's going on, because it changes, every 10 minutes, but I just can't have all the social media TV. I can't have that on all day, or it just really, by the end of the day, I see how stressed out I am. So turn it off, unplug.
It's too much for sure. How about you, Jen?
A couple of things. Well, exercise. I know it's not like about losing weight, but to me, it's like I sweat out my stress. So just getting out and like just sweating, I think that helps me personally. And there's like, chemical things that happen in your body that will help. But other than that, like complete escapism. I mean, I joked about Carol Baskin, but I watched The Tiger King, and you know what? It got my mind completely off of the pandemic. And to me, it was medicine. I also watched a show I would never have watched pre-pandemic, Love is Blind. I watched it. It's a show that I would never even have wasted my time with. But it is, so bad it's good. And
So those
again,
will make you feel better about your current state.
you won't even think about
Exactly.
your current state, because you'll just be like, what the F am I watching?
That's exactly right.
And reading, I read pretty voraciously anyway, but to me it's always been an escape from reality. And I'm talking about fiction books, not business books. But and I just read an amazing book called Little by Edward Carey. And it's such an imaginative book. I don't want to spoil too much, but it's very, very, very loosely inspired by Madame Trousseau. So, and it takes place in like the late 1700s in Switzerland and Paris. Anyway, and so it is the best book that I've read in a while, and I read quite a bit, so I highly recommend it.
Interesting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
That is awesome.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'll have to check that out. Well, ladies, I am gonna go ahead and wrap us up here because it's 3:00 and I have to start drinking. Quite frankly.
Cheers.
It's Friday happy hour.
It is
ladies.
Friday happy hour.
I mean, I've got some stuff that I could be doing, but you know what? I'm teaching my podcast class tomorrow morning, and that'll be 3 hours of a lot of energy and information and effort. And so I'm gonna just take it easy on myself, and just get through the day the best that I can. So, thank you for coming on the show and hanging out with me.
Thanks for having me.
When we're done here, of course, send me whatever links you want me to put in the description of the video, and I will update that accordingly. If you have any events that we can support or online, whatever, anything you got going on, what you want people to know about your business, send that to me and I'll update the video. So I'm gonna sign us out here. So thank you for tuning in to Live from the Living Room. We made it through another week. Fingers crossed, y'all. We're still here. We're still kicking. We're doing the best that we can. Shout out to everybody who is just getting through the day. My deepest condolences and all the love that I have to spare, and then some. If you are going through anything really difficult right now, I know it's really hard to understand how to grieve in this time. So sending you some extra love. I will shake an extra gin martini for you whenever that arrives. And I will send you all the best that I have. It's Friday. Enjoy the weekend. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Feel free to say hi. And just have a great day, y'all. Be good, be easy. Exactly. And we will catch you on Monday. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, guys. Virtual hugs.